Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services, provide the resources, activities, and so on at MedComms, and the associated websites. So information, resources, activities for people who work in and around the global MedComms community, by which I'm talking people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, the associated businesses. Importantly, also a lot of resources for people who would like to get a job in and around MedComms. So go and have a look at MedCommsNetworking.com. You'll find loads of videos, lots of them based on webinars like this at NetworkPharma TV. You'll find information about getting a career and so on at firstmedcommsjob.com and so on. So plenty of resources to go and have a look at if you've not done so already. These webinars are quite fun because we can get people in from various parts of the world talking about interesting, relevant topics. We also have, again, an interestingly international audience today. So thank you very much for all joining us. The recording of this should be on NetworkPharma TV. So I'm not going to spend any time introducing you. I'm delighted that we've got the guys here from the Salve Healthcare and from Stirred. Let them introduce themselves, but I'm going to hand over to Elena to talk about basically doing business well. Can MedComms do it better? I'm going to steal your thunder. Elena, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's MedComms weekly webinar. So we're here to chat about good business and ask the question, can MedComms do better? So Peter is clearly on a bit of a sustainability drive as we're hot on the heels of Matt Gray's session from Event Decision on sustainability in the world of events. So hopefully today we'll expand on that topic as it applies to MedComms as an industry. So to introduce the Salve, my name is Elena Mills. I'm the co-founder and managing director of the Salve, and I'm here with my co-founder, director of scientific services, Liz Southey, and also Jo Spadaccino from Stirred Health. So the Salve launched in April this year. We're a majority women-owned medical affairs consultancy, and we're on a mission to create positive impact in healthcare. We're a virtual agency, so we operate remotely and globally, and we work to bring bespoke teams together to tackle healthcare challenges. So in setting up and running a new agency, that's exciting and challenging. So this year I've made a real point of going out to speak to a lot of different agency owners to get their take on agency life and leadership. And one of those contacts that I met quite early on in our agency startup journey was Jo from Stirred. And it was apparent that our businesses, while being on opposite sides of the healthcare comms world, so medical affairs and commercial, were very aligned in terms of our values and our approach to better business. So that's why we're here today presenting together. So I'd just like to introduce Jo and Stirred.
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm Jo. I'm one half of the co-founders of Stirred. We call ourselves a health communications agency. So as Elena said, we work more on the marketing, comms and creative side of things. So while we wouldn't describe ourselves as a MedComms agency, there are definitely parallels, and we're very happy bedfellows. So we work with brands and companies that want to positively influence people's health. So that, of course, includes pharmaceuticals and life science companies, but also sees us working with others in the health sphere. So whether that's consumer health companies, public sector, not-for-profit organisations, across both B2B and B2C briefs. So we're really fueled by what we know the health sector is capable of in terms of innovation. And our ambition as an agency is to match that through the communication solutions that we deliver for clients. We're a new comms agency too. We've been operating for about a year and a half. The backstory is that my co-founder Stuart and I worked together at a previous health comms agency called Pegasus for 10 years or so before deciding to go it alone again on a new journey. At the heart of our approach is what we describe as our healthy hybrid philosophy. I thought I'd better explain the strap line underneath our logo there. And I mean, everyone will be familiar with the word hybrid, mostly in relation to, the ways companies are balancing in-office versus remote working. But we think it goes way beyond that. So in our world, whether it's bringing fresh perspectives from other verticals to challenge the health sector's tendency to what we call groupthink sometimes, whether it's blending strategic comms theory with the reality of program execution. We place as much importance on bringing people together as the initial spark of an idea, because it really is the blend of those two things that make things work. And indeed, balancing profit and purpose. So the subject of today's session, we really do believe in the power of mixing things up a bit, or even stirring them together, which is the origins of our name, in order to respond to the opportunities and challenges facing the health sector today. So that's a bit of an intro about Stirred.
So aims and objectives today. So our session is looking at better business. So by the end of the session, we hope you will have a better understanding of the ESG movement, know a bit more about the B Corporation movement specifically. We will aim to pepper our presentation with examples from our own experience and hopefully inspire you to consider what's next for you as an individual or your organisation in looking at better business practices. So just to start with a bit on the ESG movement and terminology. So I wanted to start with this quote from the fabulous Mary Portas. Mary is a retail consultant and a broadcaster, and she's also chair of the Better Business Act, which Jo will touch on a bit later. What she's pointing out here really is that business is changing, and when we look at traditional ways of doing businesses, it's clear that we need to prioritize different things. We need to look at the full impact of the business as it operates in the world. So not just concentrating on the bottom line or the profit, as it's been so often the case in the past, but also the purpose. So she says we need commerce to go hand in hand with social progress. So as new agency owners setting up a brand new agency, Liz and I and Jo wanted to apply this more considered approach to purposeful business to be and to make it very much at the heart of our business operations and practice. So what is ESG? You might have heard of that term. It stands for environmental, social and governance. And it really started life in the investment market as a way of evaluating and rating how sustainable and ethical a company is. You might have heard of the term CSR or corporate social responsibility, but ESG has really largely replaced that approach and that terminology now. So your business can undertake an ESG assessment, and just I've shown on this slide some of the examples of organisations who offer ESG assessment. There's actually over 400 of them. Some are sector specific or focused on just one aspect. So for example, the ISO 14001 assesses just environmental management. So we're not here to advocate one of these over another. We've chosen to go down the B Corporation certification route as it offers a very holistic view of good business, and we'll tell you more about why and how today. But the other one just to note in particular is Ecovadis. They've just raised quite a lot of funding, so actually they're one we'll probably be hearing much more about. Arguably it's tilted somewhat towards environmental performance, but it's very evidence driven and seems to be favoured by large procurement teams, so in particular pharma. So I'll hand over to Jo. Yeah, for B Corporation, what is a B Corporation?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the B Corp movement and give you a bit of background. So slight origin story. So B Lab is an organisation that is behind the B Corp movement. They were founded in 2006 in the US, by three friends who shared a vision to make business a force for good. The first 82 certified B Corps were certified in 2007, and it's really steadily grown as a movement since then. The UK arm for the UK contingent on the call was established in 2015, so you can kind of see the progression of the movement as it's gone on through time. And to ensure that all B Corps are aligned to the B Corp purpose, in 2007, the founding B Corps created the Declaration of Interdependence, which essentially kind of describes some of the principles that Elena was talking about earlier. So, you know, the simple truth that business should work for everyone, it recognises that all humans are connected and that business doesn't operate in a vacuum. So essentially the concept behind a B Corp is not only to succeed in monetary terms, and that is really important. You know, this isn't stepping into the charitable territory, and in fact B Corp certification is only available for profit-making businesses, but it's about putting balance back into the equation and ensuring that businesses also track the things that matter beyond profit, and importantly that they provide regular reports on them. So in a nutshell, that's what B Corp is about. So today, and actually during COVID and beyond, there's been a bit of an explosion in the movement, I think victims of their own success almost. And today there's over 5,000 certified B Corps globally. You can see some figures here. So they're across 85 countries. So it truly is a global movement. It's multi-industry. So I think their claims are that it crosses over 150 industry types. And you can see some here on this slide, everything from consumer products. I'm sure some of you may have noticed the packaging in your weekly shops. So, in fact, I think Waitrose, Ocado, and I think Boots also now have a B Corp virtual aisle on their online shopping portals and perhaps in their shops too. So, it's becoming more at the forefront of everyday life. But it's not limited to consumer products, and it stretches very much into the service sector too. Everything from banking, publishers, education, social providers. And actually the one I read about recently that stuck in my mind was even football clubs are getting in on the action. I read that Grimsby Town FC in the UK have opted and aspire to become a B Corp certified company. And their reasons really are that they want their supporters to have the chance to see their values reflected back in what the club represents. And I thought that was a really nice articulation of really, I think, what drives most organisations and companies to take part in the B Corp certification. And the UK market in itself has seen huge increase as well in the number of B Corps, despite it obviously being founded in the US. And I think the next slide, thank you, Liz, shows some of the UK numbers. So 6 billion combined revenue. I've seen different sources on this, so don't quote me on the exact numbers, but a really significant number of employees represented, and like the global picture, numerous sectors represented too. And in fact, the numbers of UK-based businesses are knocking on to nearly 1,000, so that's a fifth of the overall number of B Corps in the world. So although it is global, the UK based organisations really do seem to be getting behind the movement. The majority are small to medium-sized businesses, but more and more large enterprises are engaging with the B Corp movement, whether that's through the full certification route, but also, as we'll go on to explain, actually B Lab, the organisation behind B Corp certification, provide a really wide range of tools and resources that anyone can use, even if they don't opt to become B Corp certified. And many of the companies around the world are utilising those resources, whether or not they go for the certification. There's some more logos on that slide, and you can see the variety again. What I should probably call out is the B Corps from the health sector, because I think that's probably quite interesting for participants on this webinar. I have to say, I wish there were more. And I am personally, always quite surprised that there aren't more, particularly, and I'd love to hear thoughts from the audience on that as well. From the pharma sector, Chiesi Pharmaceuticals has really led the way here. They're an Italian HQ'd pharma company. They've been certified since 2019. There's a number of other organisations, medical device design and manufacturers, diagnostics and therapeutics companies, imaging companies. I think I read that Danone Nutrition was certified earlier this year as well. And there's a growing number of suppliers to the pharma sector as well who are becoming B Corp certified. So it is growing, but as I say, I'd like to see more. I should mention there's a fully searchable B Corp directory available on the B Lab website for anyone who's interested. So you can have a good old rummage around and see the types of companies that are fully certified. So yeah, I think the movement is growing. I think the B Lab predict that there could be nearly 1,300 B Corps in the UK by the end of this year. So it really has seen a rapid acceleration. And that includes companies that are going through the pending B Corp pathway. And we'll go on to explain a little bit more about that as we go through. But essentially, it's a route into B Corp certification, which companies who've been operational as a company for less than 12 months can follow. and starting the journey to incorporate B Corp principles into their business from day one. So it's not quite the same as being a fully certified company, although the idea is that you'll end up there eventually. But there are still a number of significant steps to have gone through to be verified as a pending B Corp, and we'll talk about those. And it includes both Stirred and the Salve. So as new businesses, we have both opted to become pending B Corps and really from day one of our businesses to start that journey. So we're going to talk you through our experience.
Thanks, Jo. So it'd be worthwhile saying here sort of what makes B Corps unique, and perhaps we'll go into a little bit more why we both wanted to go down the B Corp route. So the UK lab, as Jo's already mentioned, they have this mission along with the global B Corp mission, and they want to achieve the B Corp mission by going down 3 routes. So essentially using that comprehensive analysis, which is a global standardized assessment to business, to really focus on the whole business and not a particular part of business. Secondly, the mission look is a really important part of the B Corp movement for UK businesses, because it really bakes the mission into the legal DNA structure of business. So we are legally obliged to consider the impact of all our decisions on stakeholders, and it's actually in our articles of association. And thirdly, it's about building that community, that global community of business leaders who want to use their businesses to champion change for people and the planet as well. So why did we want to go down that route? So from the Salve perspective, right from the start, as Elena has said, that we found that the B Corp movement and assessment really reflected our values and that comprehensive look at all parts of the business. So not just focusing sort of operationally or internally on people or processes, but really that whole holistic view to business approach. And it really, aligned with what we wanted to do as new business owners. And as new business owners, it was actually provide a really good structure and framework for putting lots of policies and processes into place that really helped run a successful and efficient business, but knowing that those policies and processes that we were developing actually had a positive impact along the way. And then finally, I think for us at the Salve, there was very much that need to be held accountable. So by going through the assessment and by being measured against these standards, it actually means that not only can we say we want to do something, but we actually have to do it. And I think that's a really important part for us as well. And Jo, do you want to add anything about the reasons why Stirred went down the route as well?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, almost identical reasons. And I think that a lot of what you said there, Liz, holds true. I mean, I think for us and probably yourselves as well, because we set up business as co-founders, I think for us, myself and Stuart, as partners in a business, actually, opting into the B Corp framework has given us, that foundation where we can share our own personal values and ensure that everything we do as a partnership business is aligned and in the same place. So it helps us to talk the same language and then build that framework around us. So yeah, very, very similar. And look, we're all in the business of health, and so that's always been intertwined with that altruistic element and the desire to do good. And I've always felt that in any company I've worked at in this space. But for us, this felt like going one step further. And as you say, the accountability and commitment of baking it into the very fabric of your business is something a little bit different, I think. So that's why we opted to do it.
Great, thank you. So yeah, we'll go into a bit more detail about the B impact assessment and take you through some of the examples relevant that we found in MedComms. And to give you an overview of what it entails. So the B impact assessment is used to assess the impact on all our stakeholders, and it looks at 5 different areas. So in the area of governance, that relates actually to the articles of association that I mentioned, but it's not just sort of around the operational day-to-day activities, but it's also looking at the business model that you can adopt, and you do get awarded more points for business models that are designed to provide positive impacts. It also looks at the area of communities, so you can look at how your business can contribute to the communities within which you operate. From an environmental perspective, you can look at how you can improve your environmental stewardship. From a client perspective, you can see how you can improve the value that create for your clients, but also your indirect clients as well. So for us, that's the patient. And then also in the area of employees as well, that obviously, many companies are looking after employees in a very well-rounded way, and I think the B impact assessment just recognises that that work that's already being done in the employee well-being sector. So to pass or to be certified as a B corporation, you have to score 80 points on the assessment. I think the average score is around 91. But you can get higher scores as well. I think the highest score is around about 151, and that score is provided on the website, the B Corp website. So I'm going to hand over to Jo to take us through in a bit more detail around the governance part of the assessment.
Yeah, so just a couple of points here, as I think we've covered the kind of concept of the mission lock, as they call it, already. And it's probably worth highlighting that this locking in of the legal requirement, and essentially that's it's a legal requirement to all company directors to consider all stakeholders and not just shareholders. So it's kind of challenging that view of shareholder primacy. That isn't just limited to those who opt to be B Corp certified. So you saw the comment from Mary Porter at the start of the presentation, and she's actually chairing the coalition, the Better Business Act, which is aiming to achieve a change to the law in the UK. So it's quite specific to the UK, which is amending a portion of the Companies Act, which would effectively mandate this. So it's got a kind of groundswell of support from businesses in the UK already. Counts organisations like the Institute of Directors and the TUC among supporters. So, while this is all a voluntary move at the moment, I'd question for how much longer it will remain voluntary. And I do think we'll see a time, particularly in the UK and perhaps in other countries too, where it will become a mandatory requirement. Interestingly, it's also one of the things that pending B Corps must do at the very start of their journeys to B Corp certification. Whereas for B Corps that go through the traditional route to certification, it's something they can do at any stage of the journey. And I think, for us as a business, it felt like a really significant commitment, actually baking into the fabric of the company's legal framework. So included within the obligation is the requirement to report publicly, and that's really critical as well on how, as a company, you're balancing that kind of people, planet and profit in a strategic report or an impact report, depending on how big you are. So that's additional to any financial reporting that you're required to publish. Having gone past our first year in business, I know we've recently published our impact report, and I think the Salve team have recently published theirs too, so everyone's welcome to check them out. Ours is on our LinkedIn page. I haven't quite got around to putting it onto our website yet, but yeah, please do have a look at that. But great process to write it. Really, from an intrinsic perspective, really helped us to stop, review and set new goals for the year ahead, and then obviously from an external perspective to stay accountable. We invite everyone to ask questions about what we're doing, and it's all about learning. Not for a minute are we saying that we're getting everything right. This is about a learning process and that continual progress, and it's really helping us to do that.
So on the community section, so this section is about responsibility for your supply chain. creating and managing inclusive work environments, and then also sharing skills, training and time in areas of unmet clinical need. So in terms of responsibility for your supply chain, this includes knowing who your suppliers are, who they are owned by, their working practices, and we've made a really conscious effort to choose our suppliers very carefully. So 50% are women or minority owned businesses, 60% are local to us, and we also screen our suppliers for their working practices. So for example, are they paying a living wage, and what is their impact on the environment? It's also about creating and managing inclusive work environments, and we heard from Fisher-Wack Health team previously about that topic, so do go and give that webinar a listen if you haven't already. MedComms agencies have a really good track record in terms of sharing skills and training, and particularly in monetary kind of financial donations from giving to charities through sponsorship activities. So we fully intend to continue that tradition too, but where we wanted to do things a bit differently to what we'd seen in MedComms agencies before was to be providing our medical writing and MedComms expertise directly to not-for-profit organisations. So particularly those working in global health where there is an unmet clinical need. So we donate between 5 and 10% of our time at pro bono rates or reduced ESG rates to those organisations. Our employees are able to choose to work which organisations are meaningful to them and ones that they're passionate about. And so this year, Liz and I have done some volunteering locally with the Cheltenham Science Festival. We've been working with Asthma and Lung UK and organisations working in the underserved areas of maternal and infant health. I think, Jo, you've got some examples from Stirred as well.
Yeah, I have to. In the interest of time, maybe we can move on, maybe come back to them in the questions. Really happy to share what we're doing in more detail.
Liz, on the environmental section.
Yeah. So as MedComms agencies, we do have a great opportunity to minimise our environmental impact. We are relatively lucky in that we're not involved in sort of heavily industrialised processes or have, industrial supply chains, but we do still have to think about our carbon footprint and doing the B impact assessments. We started by measuring our sort of internal carbon footprint. You can do that with a variety of free online tools, such as those available at the Carbon Trust. And it's not just about considering like heat and energy usage or the indirect emissions that we have, but also looking at other aspects of our business, including data file storage, website hosting, etc. And we know that there are improvements that we can make in that area. So initially we've measured our carbon footprint, and on the back of that calculation know what we need to do in order to offset our indirect emissions. So that's sort of very much from an internal perspective, but then obviously from an external perspective, I know the webinar last week covered this in a great detail in terms of sustainable events, but we're in a position to be able to provide consultancy to our clients around sustainable materials, processes, print items, other items as well. For the MedComms activities that we do. And obviously we know that international travel is probably the one that has the biggest effect on indirect emissions. So looking at calculating and offsetting those when travel is unavoidable is also really important. And then eventually we're aiming to go down the net zero route, which actually looks at reducing our carbon footprint as well as offsetting, and that's really important to consider alongside. And Jo, I don't know if you've got anything else you want to add in terms of your experience at Stirred from the environmental stewardship point of view.
Quite similar, and I would say actually I think the efforts and steps that you guys have made this year has outshone us at Stirred. I think it's taken a lower priority in terms of all the things that we wanted to do with this year, and we've kind of identified that in our impact report. I think the fact that we're a remote first business and our employees are working from home has made assessing environmental impact a little more tricky, but actually it's proven to me that it's still possible with a little bit of legwork to measure and set goals. So that's been a real learning curve for us, I think, as a business, and a team who are used to being office based, and all of a sudden you have a bit of a different mindset in terms of thinking about your work life situation, and how actually there's a lot of overlap between the two. That's probably been the main thing. So on customers, so the fourth section of the B Corp impact assessment, there's a couple of things here I think I wanted to point out. One is this area is looking at the customer stewardship, so how you partner with clients and stakeholders, how you engage and listen to their needs, whether you work differently with different customers. For instance, one thing we decided we wanted to do was offer discounted rates for working with charitable organisations, and also how you deliver the work that you do for clients. So, for instance, one of the things we've laid out as a business is an ethical marketing policy, so how we do our business for clients. And we also apply a real ethical filter to any new briefs that come into us. And I think that's something we can often take for granted working in the health sector. Of course, the work we're doing is for positive and ethical reasons, and our clients, particularly those in the pharma sector, are highly regulated themselves on this front. But I think we felt it was still important to set our own filters as a business, rather than be almost passive recipients of our clients' values. And as partners, our opinions count too. And I don't know whether this is true or perhaps controversial, but perhaps as an independent, we can more easily vote with our feet in terms of the businesses that we want to work with and for. The other aspect, and this is one that I think has got great pertinence for us working in the health sector, is whether you have something called an impact business model. That's kind of the B Corp terminology. And if you can find and identify an impact business model as part of your business, it can unlock a large number of points in the certification process. So effectively, it's giving you credit for running a business that's effectively designed to create a specific positive benefit or outcome for one of its stakeholders. So these run across all sections of the impact assessment, but certainly for us as a health comms agency, we believe that comms really can be an effective health intervention in its own right. And so we're really hopeful that B Corp in its review will recognise this in the customer section. What's pivotal to that is going to be measurement, measuring your impact, and that's at the heart of the ESG movement. Measurement's a drum that we've been banging for years. So hopefully our efforts to bake in meaningful measurement to our programs will pay off in that context too.
Just two very quick examples, just in the interest of time. So where we are consulting for our clients and adding value, we've talked about diversity, equity, inclusion in the MedComms workspace, but there's also a consultancy piece for our clients here. So one of our key approaches is to support Goal 5 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals in gender equality, and to consult for our clients on diversifying HCP panels at events. And the DICE organisation is one to signpost there if you want to have a look. That's about diversity and inclusion in conferences and events. And in the publication world, it's about guidance in that area, about looking at better analysis of women's health data or women's data in the publication arena. So do check out the SAGA guidelines, which is about equity and gender in research. I think back to Jo.
Yeah, so the final section of the impact assessment, and we've given you a bit of a whistle-stop tour here through what could be up to 200 questions in the impact assessment, not to put anybody off. And this is the workers section, slightly awkward terminology. I think we both feel it could be described better. It feels a little bit 1950s to be described as workers. But that aside, this last section is one that actually I think many companies in our space will naturally do very well in. You know, I think, you know, whether it's hard numbers of salaries and offering rounded benefits packages, investing in training and development, adapting to the needs of a changing workforce, and you know, recognizing the need to nurture positive company cultures, as well as, of course, the fact we've got purposeful work in abundance really in our sector. My sense, and I obviously don't want to talk for the whole sector here, but having worked in the sector for over 20 years at a variety of organisations, I really do feel that we get a lot of things right here already. Of course, we could do better, but you know, I think any company in our space who may be considering B Corp certification may find that their efforts will be readily recognised in this section. But of course, what B Corp does is, you know, help go through the process of evaluating the impact of efforts to meet workers' needs and to be accountable for that, to support improvement planning. So that's really the benefit of that, because no matter how well you're doing, you know, needs change, society moves on, and as a business we need to develop. So yeah, as a new business and one that's keen to grow our team, we've really invested in this area, probably over invested actually, and actually quite proud of what we've put in place for such a small business. And we've given loads of thought to all of these areas that you see on the slide, and yeah, it's really been quite liberating. I think that we can almost rip up the rule book and start again. I think that's been our experience. So want to make sure that we've got room for questions. It has been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I hope we haven't lost anybody. I hope we've given you a bit of a flavour of what the B Corp certification is all about. And yes, it is without question a sizable undertaking. You know, it really isn't for the, you know, faint-hearted, and you do need to commit with both feet to the process. And it definitely has felt a little like this at times, I think, as we've gone through the certification process. But it can also make you feel like this, and it really has, you know, in terms of its pros, it's provided a fabulous learning opportunity, prompted us to think differently and try new things as business owners, and it's helped us forge new connections both within the health sector and beyond, including, as Elena said, bringing our respective businesses together. And it's almost become a sort of shorthand for whether core values align when it comes to good business practice, no matter who you're talking to. So a big advocate here in closing.
Yeah, and just to finish off, really some considerations that if you're thinking of applying for B Corp, that it is, when you do your first assessment, it's not the only assessment. You have to recertify every 3 years. So obviously it's a continual process. And then depending on the size of your business, it does set you off down different tracks. So Stirred and the Salve, I think we're categorized as micro, small, medium sized businesses. And that just means that we go off on a different track compared with larger businesses. And also consider using in-house expertise and resource, but also external consultants as well. I know that Jo involved a B leader to help with their B Corp, and we did as well. A good friend of mine, Tim Jones, helped us with our B Corp assessment. So you're not alone, you can have help, and it can be tricky navigating some of those 200 questions, as Jo said, but it is perfectly doable. So yeah, just hand over to Elena for some takeaway actions.
Yeah, I'll go through this very quickly. So just, I hope we've given you a bit of a flavour, some food for thought on where you can take a good look at how the businesses that you either own, that you manage, or that you're employed by operate, and its impact on the people, planet, and on wider society. Is it doing enough? Can it do better? And what you can do specifically in this area. So a reminder that the B Impact Assessment is free to undertake. So you can create an account for free and take yourself through a dummy impact assessment for your business and essentially benchmark yourself. So As Liz said, you need a minimum score of 80 to be certified. So where does your business come in relation to that? So even if you think your business is doing everything it can, I guarantee that if you undertake that assessment, or you've never undertaken an assessment like this, you will come away having learned about where and how you can do business better. And if you do identify a gap, a policy that's missing, for example, find the responsible ESG person in your organisation and take them a proposal. We're costed if necessary. But when we say good business is everyone's responsibility, that's as employers, employees, and your leadership should welcome those challenges as an opportunity to improve practice. So there's always room for learning and improvement. And then finally, when you're working with your clients, think about ways to proactively challenge them, preferably in all the ESG areas. And we're here to add value, as I said, as consultants, and this is one way we can positively impact on the healthcare communities that we serve. So yeah, I'd just like to throw the floor open to some questions. I know there was one person who had a question for Jo on what a rounded benefit was.
Go on, Jo, you answer that question, but can we lose the slides as well? And then we'll just have a quick chat for a few minutes.
Yeah, sure. It probably is quite a vague terminology. I mean, my definition of a rounded benefit would be a benefits package that is right for your workforce. So I don't think necessarily it's always a top-down approach to define that rounded benefits package. I think it's a two-way process, and you know, it's really critical that you engage your team, your growing team as well. And obviously for us, you know, actually the addition of 2 or 3 members of the team changes our workforce dynamic completely. So on a very small scale, we're finding that we are able to obviously be very personalised and very consensual about the benefits package we provide, and we were really mindful of doing that. Obviously, as we scale, we might not necessarily be able to be so responsive, but that for me is what I mean by a rounded benefits package in a nutshell. It's what works for your employees.
Okay, can I just, I must admit, we are running out of time a little bit, so I'm going to just be a little bit brief here. There's loads of stuff we could talk about here, and maybe this is just opening up a, you know, more webinars or more meeting or something, I don't know. Certainly, hopefully more discussion. And I will just very clearly say now, and I probably already said it, you know, a lot of these webinars, a lot of the point about these webinars is to get people connecting with each other. So I'm hoping people in the audience will be reaching out to you on LinkedIn. That's the easy way of doing it, or people watching this video and so on, because, you know, we want a wider discussion within MedComms. B Corp is an interesting example. We shouldn't say that's the be all and end all, but you know, the principles are very interesting, and I find a lot of this very, very interesting. So as a small business, you know, your first task is to get some work in, sort of thing, or in many instances, you know, and that can take up all your time. So, you know, how do you juggle that with the sort of, well, yeah, but we want to do the right thing, and we all sort of want to do the right thing, but you're taking, it's quite a big step to go down a B Corp type route, and invest the time and the money and the energy into that sort of thing. Getting that juggling that sort of balance is quite interesting. Maybe there's a bigger discussion there, but a couple of people are asking about that sort of, you know, how do you juggle that? I wanted to just cut straight to the whatever the point is. You know, it's great. We start a business, you want to do the right thing. This gives you a structure and a way of going about it, which is, apart from anything else, when you're starting a new business, it's probably quite useful to you in terms of just giving you some guidelines and some thought process and some, you know, what we have to do, etc. But, you know, to be brutally frank, these days it's becoming an absolute requirement, isn't it? That you're, and it was interesting, you say you're sort of imposing your values on your suppliers, but it, you know, we're an agency business, or you're an agency business, and your clients are imposing their requirements on you. And I'd just like to dwell a little bit for that, a couple of minutes on that. You know, what have you had so far in terms of the pharma clients, let's call them pharma clients, imposing on you requirements to, for instance, someone's talking about EcoVadis, for instance, which I know is what a lot of the big companies. How do these things mash together? Because what worries me is, I think you mentioned 400 different types of platform. You can't do them all. You know, if somebody's doing, if a big pharma is doing EcoVadis and comes to you with a 100-page questionnaire or something, goes, boom, you know, you got to do this. How useful is B Corp in dealing with most of that problem, or do you have to go through the whole process again? I don't know much about it, so just explain a little bit. Can Elena, just maybe you lead the way, but everybody have a picture. What have you found from that point of view? You doing business with other people who are requiring you to?
So procurement teams are definitely hot on this now, and where we've received RFPs, this is part of it. This is proving your credentials, and they do sometimes specify EcoVadis, but they will usually word it as EcoVadis or an equivalent, or an equivalent environmental management system. And that's one of the reasons we went for B Corp, because it is so holistic that you can put your B Corporation certification, and that should enable them to be reassured that you've met standards in all these areas. So I don't know whether that answers your question. I mean, that actually for us, it's been really useful because as a women-owned business, we are actively sought by pharma because they are trying to diversify their supply chain. So it's been really helpful from both sides, actually.
Can I just push that one a little bit further? It might be my ignorance, okay, but it's interesting, and I might be misunderstanding what you said. But if somebody goes to you, can you tick this box that say we are certified by one of a variety of platforms or something, then you can go yes. But the scenario that I've heard about relatively recently is where a big pharma company has basically just gone, there's a 100-page questionnaire. It's not, you can't just tick the box and go, well, we've done this or that. They've got their own questionnaire that you have to go through. And the agency supplier has been told, if you do not complete this satisfactorily in the next few weeks, you're off our list, sort of thing. Have you any experience of that sort of scenario? I'm just interested. That seems quite extreme to me, but
yeah,
Jo,
they're not usually like, they're not usually that long, and we've got our own. We ask our suppliers to do a supplier onboarding questionnaire, but they are part of that RFI process. So yeah, Jo, maybe you can jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing, right? I think we, the supplier pressure and the whole kind of value chain is what's driving good business practice. So yes, there's some administrative hurdles, and I think essentially behind all of these questionnaires are the same sentiments and data. So I know that the processes that we've gone through to gather data for our B Corp certification is exactly the same questions that will come up on any assessment. So I haven't yet been in receipt of a 100-question survey, but I have been in receipt of others, and they are asking for equivalent certifications. So the B Corp certification is valuable.
So even if you're not ticking a box, it's as simple as ticking the box, and maybe my example is extreme, but I know it's a real one. But the point is, or your point is, you're gathering the evidence, you're going through the processes, and if somebody asks a slightly different set of questions, or at least a slightly different form, you're in much better position to
you've already got
then ask
absolutely, and that's been a benefit.
And I do think the various platforms are making efforts to kind of synergize a little bit. I know EcoVadis and B Corp kind of have published some information which kind of talks about how the two are synergistic and exactly how they fit in. And essentially B Corp, goes a little bit further than EcoVadis, obviously, because it bakes in the kind of commitment to the legal framework of the company, whereas EcoVadis is an assessment questionnaire, so, a kind of dashboard. So that they are attempting to explain how the different platforms, and the UN Sustainable Goals is the other. B Corp have actively weaved in how B Corp certification links in with the UN Sustainable Goals in their impact assessment. So they are all talking to each other. And I think that
and as I say, I mean, the blunt point, which I want to just dwell on slightly, because I do think it gets missed, is it's all very well wanting to do the right thing, but if the people you are working for demand it, then that's a very different conversation than just we want to do the right thing. If that client company is going, if you do not fill in the form or tick this box or whatever, then and I get the impression from some of the conversations I've had with people that there's a lack of awareness, let's keep it amongst MedComms, as to how fast that process is happening.
Yes.
And some people have not seen this yet, but I know it's becoming very real for some of the agencies, and that should make people sit up and think a little bit.
Absolutely, it really should. It's definitely changed, even in the last couple of years. The questions that are coming through on the RFIs, which is great. This is a good thing. And like Jo said, at some point we think this will be mandated. across the board. This will be law, and it won't be better business. It will just be business.
I thought Grace's question was interesting. Maybe it just touches on a bigger question again here, though. Is your rating affected if you do business with a bad client? You know, is there some sort of sense of that? I mean, as an agency, you sort of don't want to turn away work. Again, you can go a certain amount of the way in insisting on your values and whatever, and hopefully they merge with the client. It's all that sort of thing I get, but there's a point at which you go, actually, we just want to do this work. To take Grace's point, does the process over the next year or two go, hang on a second, you've actually worked with someone that just doesn't do that, therefore your standing is affected? You're nodding at me, but just touch on it for a minute or two to explain how that works, maybe, Jay. Oh, sorry, Liz, looks like
yeah, I was just going to say, I think as part of the impact assessment, you actually have to put who your main clients are, and if they are considered, or I can't remember the exact wording, but we have obviously stated that pharmaceutical clients are our main clients, and so it's not necessarily justifying that, but we did include some wording around how there are potential issues with perceptions of pharmaceutical business and ethics, and of course we're not here to defend that, but ultimately we're here to show what a positive impact we can have working with them. And also as well, I think if you are not just doing it for the score, but doing it to reflect your values, then you are going to turn down bad business.
And we have.
Yeah.
And just it doesn't affect your rating. So if a client is bad in terms of they don't want to listen to you, then that's not ultimately going to affect you. You're there to consult and to provide that advice and the suggestions. So so just to answer that.
But as you say, it does set you up with a set of values in quite a clear. I mean, everyone talks about values, but this is quite I find it interesting to go through, to see people going through processes like this and sort of put those sort of harder sort of things in place. Just to touch on it very briefly, because I think it's probably appropriate. No one's actually asked the question, but as a new business to become, I've lost the terminology now. Sorry, what is it? B Corp.
Certified. Yeah.
I was going back to what are you? Sorry, there's the word.
We're pending certified B Corporation. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. The point I wanted to make was, you're not talking about a huge amount of money. It's I think looking at the website, it's about £250
to it was £250 to apply for pending.
Yeah, they're doubling the price actually this month. I think I spotted that. Yeah. So but it's hundreds of pounds. I would imagine
it is scalable, as well. Peter. Just to flag, it is scalable.
The pending, it becomes scalable later on, yeah. But the pending level, the pending level is the starting point, right? So it's a few hundred quid to start, and then it becomes scalable, and so on and so forth. So we're not talking about a lot of money. We are talking presumably about a reasonable amount of effort and time and so on. But I do again, I think it's interesting that new businesses can look at this and say, well, we could start this way for not a lot of financial outlay and go in the right direction, sort of thing, and grow with it. And then bigger businesses have some slightly different questions to ask us. So, but I find it absolutely fascinating, and I'd love to have a lot longer to talk, but we've gone way over time now. So I'm going to draw the line now before we lose everybody, and say a huge thank you to you. Again, this is about people meeting each other and talk to each other. I want people who are watching this to reach out to you and ask
Very
more.
Happy to ask
obviously go and look at the B Corp website and so on, and just maybe there's more of a bigger discussion around this that we can try and generate across MedComms. So thank you to everyone that's been here today. If you're watching this video, as I say, I do think follow up these resources is really quite interesting. A huge thank you to the panelists. If anyone's interested in what I'm doing at MedComms, MedCommsNetworking.com is the place to go, basically, or just give me a shout anytime. I'm always happy what I can to help if I can. But thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to ask everyone just to give us a little wave as I stop the recording. So panelists, let's say wave and give a goodbye. Bye bye.
Bye.